Hey guys, what's up? Today we're gonna meet the 10 most disappointing JRPGs ever made. Games that never met the expectations of almost anybody. Alright, let's begin! Number 10. Heroes of Mana. While the Mana series began sliding towards lower sales with each entry after Legend of Mana on the PS1, there was never a more disappointing experience than Heroes of Mana. It was now a real-time strategy RPG with poor AI, uninspiring gameplay, and a rushed mess with its battle mechanics. Players will have to use the stylus in the touchscreen to have their characters move, all these leading to unresponsive controls. Lots of other RPGs had included this same feature, most of them failing as well or getting mixed to negative reviews. Heroes of Mana, however, was probably among the worst received, as it did have extremely tedious gameplay features. The story was pretty forgettable as the game focused more on the overall core of the game, which was the real-time strategy elements. In the end, it was more than a mediocre game, as it disappointed a lot of gamers, and it almost killed the franchise for good. Too bad great people were involved in this lame RPG on the DS, such as Yoko Shimomura on the music, and Masato Kato on the script. Such a shame. Number 9. Mega Man 64. This version in particular was a direct port from the original PlayStation version. That one was well received by critics at first, but totally rejected by a lot of gamers worldwide. And even though the majority leaned towards a negative response, it did fairly well and succeeded. Its infamous Nintendo 64 port, as well as the one for PC, was the last straw. People just couldn't believe how mediocre this was, as they were expecting it to be superior to its PlayStation predecessor. It not only had one of the worst camera controls ever made, but also gameplay that felt downsized compared to the original version. It had outdated graphics and a poor transition to the console. Believe it or not, some music and sound effects were gone during the conversion. Granted, it wasn't an atrocious abomination or a terrible game, but the expectations on such a name of such a franchise were pretty damn high. So of course something as mediocre as this would only end up being a huge disappointment. Number 8. Breath of Fire Dragon Quarter. I've discussed this game quite a few times before in my channel, calling it a black sheep in the Breath of Fire series. I've also said it's brutally hard, and that it's a game that is just not for everybody. I honestly have nothing new to say about it that I haven't already said in those other videos. All I can add is that I wasn't the only one who was disappointed. I've never been the greatest Breath of Fire fan out there, but I did play some of the others first and became a small enthusiast. But when I tried this strange experiment by Capcom, I couldn't believe how awkward it was. Its gameplay mechanics derived from dying all the time and restarting the game from the very beginning. Every time you transform into a dragon, you had a lot of penalties, such as being close to death. Its graphics were cel-shaded, yeah, and I love that style, but here they just look boring and depressing. Overall, I just don't know what to think about this game anymore. It's not a bad RPG by any means, so give it a try just so you can at least have an opinion about it. Number 7. Dragon Quest Swords. This spin-off was an attempt to exploit the Wii's capabilities and its functionality as a console. The developers wanted people, especially kids, to know that RPGs could also enjoy the motion controls and the sensor. Sadly, it went terribly wrong, as many people initially complained about the lack of detection and the overall boredom of the game. Story, sound, music, and graphics were okay, but honestly, they were also forgettable. The main experience was to play with the motion controls by swinging your arm around in front of the TV, sitting or standing. It didn't matter because you got tired pretty quickly of missing most of the time. This only helped the frustration grow even bigger. So in the end, the hit detection killed the game and also buried the expectations of many other fans of the franchise. And even when the Motion Plus controller was created, partly fixing the problem, the game became boring, tedious, and repetitive over time anyway. It was a huge disappointment for me, and I still deem it as probably one of the worst RPGs I've ever played. Number 6. Star Ocean, Integrity and Faithlessness. Ever since this series had its major influence and success during the PlayStation era with Star Ocean: The Second Story, it seems that every single entry in the series has disappointed a part of its fanbase in one way or another. I've enjoyed every single one of them, especially till the end of time on the PS2 and The Last Hope on both the Xbox 360 and the PS3. But the one that I can agree with people when they say it was a huge disappointment is the 5th main title in the series, Integrity and Faithlessness. It was released on the PS3 and the PS4, although the PS3 version never left Japan. Its graphics were outstanding, to be honest, and both the landscapes and the characters looked absolutely gorgeous. Apart from that, though, there's barely anything truly positive to say about it. Story and character development is way too lazy. You can feel it right from the very beginning and even later on in the game. Seriously. Battle system is a chore mainly because of the camera, and second because it's very messy, full of difficulty spikes. Oh yeah. And music is just forgettable, to be honest. It's not a bad game at all, and I still recommend it to people every now and then, but it's unquestionably the worst Star Ocean ever made. Proof that Square Enix pushed Tri-Ace, the developer, into a bad direction they never wanted, hence why they left Square for good. Number 5. Tales of Symphonia 2: Dawn of the New World. Well, I've always said it. To date, I still prefer playing this game over its prequel on the GameCube. I don't care, hate me if you want, I think it's a much better game. However, I belong to a very small minority when I say that, as the general consensus still agrees that this was a terrible disappointment. Tales of Symphonia was a huge deal back in the day. It not only made the franchise very popular in the West, but it also became highly regarded as one of the best in the series. You can only imagine people were expecting wonders from its sequel on the Wii. Alas, it failed miserably and most fans were pissed off. Major complaints went towards the fact that there was a new cast of main characters, both childishly annoying. Nobody liked Emil, and he quickly became one of the worst protagonists in a JRPG. Of course I disagree with that, but my opinion doesn't stand out. Other harsh criticism went towards the fact that the original cast was just kinda there, being almost irrelevant to the story. I think at least the battle system is much better now, that you could fully run around in 3D in a fast-paced combat, faster than before. Sadly, once again, I don't think many people would agree on that. So yeah, it disappointed hundreds of thousands of gamers worldwide, and it remains, according to them, as one of the worst titles in the series. I don't care, I still love it. Number 4. Final Fantasy Mystic Quest. This story is quite old, but it became so legendary people still remember it nowadays. It's so infamous it can still piss newcomers to the franchise, all thanks to its background. You see, back in the early 90s, Japan thought that turn-based RPGs, especially the Final Fantasy titles, were just too hard for Western gamers. So they thought releasing a watered-down version of their series, extremely easy, mediocre, dull, boring, and repetitive, was the solution to their problem. It was gonna be a huge success over there, they thought. A masterful marketing strategy, fuck yeah! But nope, it wasn't. The game failed and people complain about everything. Perhaps except the soundtrack, which was freaking awesome. Anyway, obviously every critic and gamer outside Japan felt insulted when they found out the developers thought we couldn't handle hard games. To make matters worse, Mystic Quest was not only easy, but at the same time hard to play as well, mainly for being beyond repetitive with the story that was lackluster. Hell, I never even cared once about it. Again, it's not a bad game at all, and I would gladly play this game any day over the first 3 games on the NES and Famicom, but I must confess that when I first played it, it also disappointed the heck out of me. Number 3. Shining Resonance Refrain. The Shining series have been on a serious decline over the past couple of decades. They just can't seem to find their way anymore into the gaming community. Changing developers all the time, changing gameplay styles over and over and over again. At this point, and with this entry, it's clear Sega is beyond desperate, already on a path to oblivion. This game is literally a mediocre copy of any Tales of game with God Eater elements. And yet another waifu simulator. Fan service all the way might be one of its only appealing qualities for some people. To be honest, when I played it, I realized how ridiculously low Sega has gone with this franchise. I didn't think the game was bad, but no way I was gonna pay full price for any version of this disappointing entry. Geez, I will pay $15 and probably not a single penny more. It's just not worth it. Do you really want me to explain about the highly generic story, stereotyped protagonist, and the beautiful waifus with no personality? It just feels so empty for some reason, as if the developers didn't put any effort into it. It was supposed to be the big comeback of the Shining series, so imagine the expectations. Tragically, I can't disagree with the fact that it's one of the most disappointing RPGs ever made. Number 2. Tales of Zestiria. Can't there be any list without mentioning one of the biggest black sheep in the family of RPGs, the infamous, controversial and disappointing Tales of Zestiria. Don't worry, I haven't changed my mind. I still claim I fully enjoyed the experience and it never crossed my head that this was a bad game at all. Probably not among my favorites, but still a solid action RPG that I recommend to everybody. Well, you know the story. Bandai Namco sold us Alicia as the main heroine in the trailers, then it turned out she wasn't, then it was supposed to be an open world, then it turned out it wasn't. But honestly, everything else is just very subjective criticism from people who only looked for more excuses to pile up the trash atop this good and humble game. They said the story is generic, characters are boring, the overall setting and plot is forgettable, blah blah blah. Battle system was hard to get into, I'll give you that. It felt like a mixture between Tales of Graces and Tales of Xillia gone wrong. I ended up understanding it and enjoying it, but it sure is among the worst battle systems in the series. Whatever my opinion or your opinion might be on this game, it's hard to disagree with the fact that it is still to date one of the most disappointing RPGs of all time. Number 1. Final Fantasy XV. Final Fantasy XV was a long-awaited title that started off as Final Fantasy XIII Versus before the horrible trilogy on the PS3 and the Xbox 360 ever existed. It was suspended for a while and all the project turned into something entirely different in the end. Then, after another MMORPG attempt that failed at first but succeeded after an update, Final Fantasy XIV, Square Enix finally went back to the original idea and developed this game. No other, and I mean it, no other title in the series has ever felt so apart from a Final Fantasy game. It's completely far away and it represents nothing of the franchise whatsoever. To me, this was just Grand Theft Fantasy, as the developers were trying for an open world game with pseudo-cool characters driving in a convertible all over the place. Does that sound like Final Fantasy to you? Battle system was kind of fun, but it felt obnoxious and controls were a little bit clunky, to be honest. I know the graphics were vastly impressive, but that's all Square Enix seems to care about nowadays. Great graphics don't save a bad game. And I'm not saying Final Fantasy XV is bad, since I barely played it, but the disappointment I felt while playing was a reason enough for me to turn it off and never come back to it. The last straw, however, was the fact that it was an incomplete game. Released on an episodic format throughout the years. Many people thought this was a stupid idea and a very, very dirty strategy from Square Enix. They never sold you the whole game and were just cashing in episode after episode, all the time. That's some major bullshit I can't accept. This blatant experiment is awful, and it's not by any means a Final Fantasy game. And that was its biggest mistake, being called Final Fantasy. Truly one of the most, if not the most, disappointing JRPG ever created. I think the list could go on and on, but it'll be full with just niche titles more than anything else. That's why I chose these 10, because I thought they were like the most popular disappointing RPGs of all time. JRPGs. So what are the most disappointing JRPGs that you think I missed or that should have been on this list? Let me know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!